Hi everyone, Kurt with Hypnodyne. So this is a particularly clean recording that I acquired with an electrode that is already months old, and I'm experimenting with it and trying to add some textile material in between the gel pads. But this was recorded also on a Raspberry Pi, which previously had some real issues with interference between the dongle and the Wi-Fi board because they're so close on the Pi. But change a few settings. I had to increase the latency a little bit. Normally on Hypnodyne is 4 milliseconds, stable. So far better performance than Bluetooth. However, here I had to increase it to half a second. The only reason for that is when you turn it up to half a second, the Wi-Fi has time to transmit data while the Hypnodyne transmitter is not transmitting, so they don't completely overlap, and that makes the signal quality a lot better. But so we've got this really, really clean recording, and the script that was running on this was the latest and greatest movement script that tries to give you auditory dream induction speech synthesis stimuli during periods of movement that occur following a REM sleep. I've already shown you something like this, but that was the result of feeding an existing recording through the script, whereas this is actually the script uh, happening in real time. Is the results of that, which might change when you have a stimulation. What does that do to your sleep? Evidently, the effects are not negligible or wouldn't even be useful. So here is the marker bar. You can import that by simply going to import markers, and the script itself, well, don't worry about that now, but the script itself creates a markers file which has these three types of markers in different colors. In green is movement. So for instance, you see that we have movement here. In purple is REM detection. So there's eye movements. This is REM detection, yes? And in yellow, the yellow are periods in which there was both movement and REM, but the movement is following the REM. So it's looking back the previous 5 minutes, and only if a previous 5 minutes epoch was considered REM and there's a movement in the current epoch, then it's considered yellow, which is a poor combination with white. You can't really see, but it doesn't matter. This is when the audio stimulation happened. Okay, so the first thing to do is to verify whether the movement had the right threshold. So I go where the movement was marked, and I verify that in fact we have substantial movement. So the threshold, of course, I verified that experimentally. That's not a surprise. Then I'm going to verify that in fact the purple periods are REM, which I think is the case for almost all of them. Now this one here, I think this got it wrong. So as you can imagine, it's not completely, I mean, it's not perfect, but I think what's happening here, these eye movements, these could very well be, but they're not as precise. There are times when eye movements occur in the presence of spindles or other things. Like for example, look at this. So I'm pretty sure that this is spindles. We can see that we can see the spindle right here. And right here is another one. It's a little bit hidden. But so here we have eye movements plus spindles. So when this happens, I also have the autoscorer result. The autoscorer happens offline. That is once the night is completely recorded. And these markers are created, of course, in real time because the stimulation has to happen in real time. So here we find a little bit of discrepancy between the offline scorer and the online scorer. But just I think, I don't know, 2 epochs. That's the whole discrepancy over the whole night. The night is 883 epochs, so a really good result. But to tell you a little bit why that's happening, the autoscorer prioritizes spindle detection over REM, and it's correct in doing that because many times you do have eye movements, whether they're fast or slower eye movements, and they co-occur with the spindles. I think most scorers consider that to be N2 sleep. So the autoscorer is more accurate, of course. It has time to look at the whole night. The online score a little bit less. So for instance here, this is N3 sleep, and it wrongly assumed that it was a period of REM, perhaps due to some eye movements. And what happened after is that during a movement, it stimulated incorrectly. Okay, because of course movement here, and that was the REM. But that's one case. The other one that I think might be wrong is here. And these, in fact, are again eye movements, same patterns. You see that they're very, very well anti-correlated, so that cannot be sweat. Sweat doesn't really work like that. Yeah, sweat's not going to do that. So I don't know what's happening here. I hope I don't have something serious. But this is definitely sweat. So, you know, normally I'm showing you something that I'm familiar with. This is maybe even more interesting because I'm showing a recording that I haven't really looked at all. I don't know. This might be the odd freak sweat episode in which the sweat is actually producing strongly anti-correlated signals on the two channels. But it's very suspicious because also the slope there where the two signals meet. Okay, so I don't know actually if these are eye movements or not. But anyway, the online algorithm has said, look, these look a lot like eye movements. So I'm going to score that as REM. And then there was a movement. So we have 1 and 2 wrong stimulations. I'm showing you these first because the rest is all perfectly spot on. Let's go to the good ones. So for example, this is all marked as REM, which is correct. By the way, for people that have brought up about EMG, and then we had discussions about, oh, I don't believe that EMG is really useful for scoring REM because, for example, during REM you have a lot of muscle twitches. This is what I'm talking about, you see right here. These are muscle twitches. So, I don't know, it's supposed to be completely paralyzed during REM sleep, but I see a lot of high frequency activity. Anyway, let me not get carried out. That doesn't matter. So these are eye movements. And then there's a movement right here, which is exactly what I wanted to detect. I wanted to hone in right on this. I call it the hole. That's that's the non, or that is the period where you don't have spindles, where you get all the REM activity. I wanted to get exactly this spot and then wait for a movement to then bang, trigger the audio cue. Let's remove the Fourier there. That's what the audio cue looks like. It's actually interesting because I think it's saying attention, you might be dreaming. So keep in mind this shape right here. I'm going to move to another yellow marker. No, that didn't work the way I wanted. Again, okay, so this one. This is the pattern that says attention, you might be dreaming. And I think I recall that when I was looking at this, yeah, so that's what it looks like. It begins immediately when the movement occurs. Maybe they're not exactly the same. Here it is, okay. Because of course, as you can imagine, you're moving, so there's other noise overlapping that, right? But this is what the speech looks like on the audio track, so that you can actually verify that it keeps repeating the same phrase over and over again. Let's look at this one, see. So let me tell you in detail what happened throughout this night, okay? The first few times I set the volume too low, and I sleep with earplugs. So what happens is that I would hear this, and okay, I heard something. I remember that that's what it's supposed to tell me. So that worked just as well. It doesn't matter. But I think at some point I woke up, probably around this time here. In fact, all this noise right here is when I was running around, and probably had some restroom break, and I fixed the monitor volume. And oops. In fact, during this time, the light level is at 0. And the reason is because I went to the restroom where it's dark compared to the bedroom that has a window. and it was already light in the morning. Just small things that you can see here and try to reconstruct what went on. But basically, the first few times I just heard some mumbling, but I knew what it was. And okay, so let me come to the important part after verifying that all of these are good stimulations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one, maybe not so much. Yeah, that's not REM. 6, 7, 8. Although then I did wake up actually. And then 9, I would say. So I had 9 chances throughout this night where I woke up momentarily, I got the cue, and then I went back to sleep. And so now the actual important thing is what did it feel like and what did I accomplish? I did not lucid dream, but I think this is very useful because I found myself multiple times in the position of, okay, I'm super tired, I'm almost asleep but still awake. If I just don't think about anything, I'm gonna go right back to sleep. Very, very easy. You know, that sensation when you feel your breath is trying to return to autopilot and your mind tends to drift. But I was trying to not forget the fact that I was trying to lucid dream. So it was hard to balance those two things. The more I thought, oh, I'm going to be lucid, and the more I wasn't going to get asleep. And the more I decided, oh, screw it, let me just sleep. And the more I wasn't going to be lucid. So my conclusion is the following. So this system by itself is still not enough, at least on the first attempt, right? Then it might depend on the person as well. Still not enough to just make you lucid dream without doing any effort. But I tell you this, without the system, my default routine is that I'm going to try to do that effort right here at the sleep onset when I'm still completely awake. And by the time I get into N1 phase, I'm already not really able to think about anything. So to try to do that exercise here, that is to maintain your focus, your awareness, and still be able to get to sleep with all the sleep pressure that's trying to bring you right into N3 sleep, that is far, far more difficult than, for example, in the next few nights, continuing to practice. And, you know, if I get 9 chances every night, I think pretty soon I'm going to be able to find the right way, right? To stay just at the edge of consciousness. Essentially, that is the whole skill, isn't it, of lucid dreaming. When you're awake, you want to preserve that tiny bit of consciousness where you're not completely losing your awareness, but you want to also be able to get to sleep. And when you're asleep, you're in a lucid dream, then you want to remain in the dream. You don't want to lose lucidity, but you don't want to wake up either. I think that's a learned skill. I think that having 9 different chances per night to practice that, and like, let me show you what I did, right? So these times I said, listen, my main problem is I'm going to wake up from this if I try to think too hard. So I I did too little um, in terms of trying to focus on dreaming. And that's why I fell back asleep. You can see here from the stimulation point, I went back into N1 sleep that looks to me. So the auto scorer also got it exactly right. And then back into REM sleep. So that was a poor attempt at lucidity. Then I tried it again. I tried it again and again. I just went right back to REM sleep without lucidity. At some point around here, I decided, you know what, this is I should focus more on on lucid dreaming and a little bit less on falling back asleep. And that's when, unfortunately, after some time, yeah, I had to take a restroom break, and I actually completely woke up for some time. Um, Now, something that bothers me here in the auto scoring is that, or does it bother me? Is that actually wrong? Let me see. I don't know what's going on here. I think there might be a few epochs of wake. Am I going to say that it missed because I see spindles here? Guys, let me know. I don't know if it's annoying that I'm trying to figure things out as I'm looking through or if it's actually informative. No, these are alphas. No. So I don't know. I probably should look at it, but I mean, a few epochs, like, I don't know, 6, 7 epochs that should have been wake. And then what's happening here is that there's one type of artifact I still haven't fed into the auto scorer, and that is the these kinds of things. This is when the dongle is not receiving data, which of course I'm in the other room, so you don't expect it to. But I don't think I've actually incorporated this kind of artifact in the scoring. It's probably showing it to you. This should be in the RF gaps. Let me see. No, it's not pulling it. It doesn't matter. Anyway, there are a few glitches here. That all should be wake. Like if I were to manually correct it, I would take this whole thing and make it wake. But the main reason is because I was walking around and losing radio packets. So there is one case of artifacts that I haven't really examined yet. I think this is N1. I'm going to go with N1 on that. And here I would correct it to N2. Okay. So this was a very hard transition. So I'm going to REM to wake, back to REM, back to N2. I want to check if my K-complex detectors caught that. That's the green. So actually, yes, it did catch them. It caught these very nice and big K-complexes. That's the green stuff right here. Another interesting part of the recording would be here. If I go to this section, you see that we have K-complexes, but seemingly without spindles. Oh, there's one right there. How about here? It's not completely absent, but certainly not as strong as other N2 areas, but it's still caught the K-complexes right here. K-complexes are actually hard to detect because all sorts of artifacts and movements can look like a K-complex. Okay. This should be shown as eye movements in oranges. Yeah, just a tiny bit. I need a indicator here. I need a vertical bar to show you which epoch you're looking at. I need to add it. Okay, so it did get the sweat here, lots of sweat. So here's the main message from this test, right? What I've done to simplify things. Sorry, before I do that, interesting is the heart rate. In the past couple of nights, I've actually managed to have a nightmare, which I wanted to record. I wanted to have a recorded nightmare to look at my heart rate during nightmares. And this particular night, it didn't happen. So my heart rate is very flat at 53, 55 BPM for the whole night. The only thing you see during REM sleep is because there are so many arousals that you have these spikes. But this is another grievance that I have with people who say that they can use the heart rate to stage sleep because the heart rate variability changes. I don't know if you can really call this heart rate variability. It's just spikes because you tend to have arousals. And by the way, you have them here as well, you see, but this is slow wave sleep. So what about that? Where else? Like here you have some spikes as well. Anyway, grievances aside, that was the heart rate stuff. Going back to the hypnogram. My take-home message from this is that the script, this is called movement something script, forgot the exact name. It's actually useful. It's useful, but not because the audio cue immediately hypnotizes you into having a lucid dream. It's useful because it creates an opportunity for you to practice that very fragile moment that normally you get only at the beginning of the sleep onset, and that people that can do the wild method, that is wake induced lucid dream, try to practice and try to become proficient at. Okay, this facilitates that for you. It's like having side wheels on your bicycle, because it actually informs you several times per night. In my case here, 9. In a period in which you're already right there at the edge of being asleep versus non being asleep, and it reminds you what you have to do. So tonight I'm going to try it again, and the goal is to again get to one of these epochs right here and practice that subtle mental magic to try to maintain focus on the idea of lucid dreaming and doing the dream check but at the same time actually being able to go to sleep. Again, I've erred by defect a few times. Then I decided to bump up the consciousness level. It's the consciousness level. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say right about here, I had enough of falling back asleep without becoming lucid. So I was really trying, lucid, 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 and then, I woke up completely. So too weak, too strong. Maybe tonight's the night. I'm actually having fun. If you want to try this for yourself, the script for this is included with the new package of the software. So it's very likely you'll do better than me. Very likely. This is a very bad attempt at lucid dreaming. Interesting stuff anyway. Let me know if you have any comments. Kurt out.